What happens when one of the most respected actors in Hollywood goes head-to-head with a veteran political journalist live on national television? What begins as a routine promotional appearance quickly spirals into a clash of egos, principles, and power. This is the moment Denzel Washington decided he wasn't going to play along anymore. And what followed wasn't just an interview. It was a reckoning. And trust me, once you hear this, you'll never watch morning news the same way again. But before we unravel this unprecedented showdown, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and drop a comment below. Who do you think crossed the line, here, Denzel or George? Because once this interview started, nothing, absolutely nothing, went as planned. The morning began like any other at the Good Morning America studios in the heart of Times Square. Studio lights buzzed to life, teleprompters flickered, and crew members shuffled briskly through rehearsal queues. It was supposed to be business as usual, a light segment, with a respected A-list actor promoting his latest directorial project. That actor, none other than Denzel Washington. Denzel arrived early, as he always did, calm, grounded, professional. He walked onto the set with that quiet confidence he'd become known for, greeting production assistants by name, exchanging a few warm laughs with the camera crew. He was there to talk about a film already generating serious Oscar buzz, a story of redemption, loss, and human resilience. It was a project close to his heart. Meanwhile, in the dressing room just down the hallway, George Stephanopoulos, former White House communications director turned high-profile morning anchor, was hunched over a thick stack of notes. The segment producers had handed him a clean rundown: movie plot, directorial process, Denzel's inspirations. But George had something else in mind. For days, he'd been stewing over recent comments Denzel had made in a separate interview about celebrities needing to stay in their lane when it came to political discourse. George saw an opportunity to steer the conversation in a different direction, edgier, riskier, and if he was being honest with himself, controversial enough to make headlines. When the lights came up and the live indicator blinked red, Denzel settled into the leather guest chair across from George. They exchanged pleasantries, a few smiles, just enough for the cameras. But behind those smiles, the atmosphere was thick with something else: anticipation, maybe even suspicion. Then George leaned in slightly, with that practiced tilt of the head that always preceded a difficult question. "Denzel," he began, "we'll get to your new film in a moment. But first, I want to ask you about something you've said recently. You mentioned that actors should stay in their lane when it comes to politics. A lot of people found that surprising coming from you." Denzel didn't flinch, but the smile slipped slightly. "Well, George," he began slowly, "I said that we should use our platforms responsibly. There's a difference between having an opinion and having the background to speak on complex issues with authority. That's all I meant." "But isn't that a bit hypocritical?" George pressed. "You've been vocal about several social issues in the past. Are you saying it's okay for actors to speak out, but only when the message aligns with your personal beliefs?" And just like that, the gloves were off. Denzel's jaw tightened, only slightly, but it was enough for viewers at home to see. The shift, the room chilled, the energy shifted. But his voice remained calm. "I'm saying we should all think before we speak, George. That's not controversial, that's common sense. And frankly, that seems to be in short supply these days, especially in media." George raised his eyebrows in mock surprise. "Are you suggesting that journalists don't think before they speak?" "I'm not making accusations," Denzel said, leaning back. "I'm making observations, and my observation is that sometimes the media seems more invested in creating drama than finding the truth." The crew went quiet, not just respectfully quiet, dead quiet. Camera operators leaned forward slightly, instinctively zooming in. The tension wasn't just palpable, it was magnetic. George smiled, but it was tight, strained. "That's interesting, coming from someone who's made a career playing characters who blur the line between truth and fiction. Take Training Day, your portrayal of a corrupt cop. Were you trying to make a statement about law enforcement, or were you just, as you said, staying in your lane?" Denzel's eyes narrowed, and now the smile was gone completely. "Let me explain something to you, George," he said. "When I play a character, I'm telling a story. That's the job. I don't pretend it's real life. But when you sit in that chair, you're not supposed to be performing. You're supposed to be reporting facts. That's the difference." George's posture grew sharper. He sat forward now, elbows on the table, voice rising. "Oh, you want to talk about honesty? Let's talk about Hollywood and its relationship with the truth. You all love to lecture the American people about morality, but you live in gated communities, fly private jets, and cash million-dollar checks. So which version of reality are we supposed to believe?" And now it was Denzel's turn to lean forward. "Ivory tower. George, do you know where I grew up? Have you ever wondered what I've lived through? Or do you just see the red carpets and assume I've forgotten what struggle looks like?" George scoffed. "You've done well for yourself. That's great. But don't act like you still live in the same world as the rest of us. You're part of an elite now. Admit it." The stare Denzel gave him next could have melted glass. "You want to talk about being insulated," he said quietly. "Let's talk about network anchors who've never had to wonder where their next meal was coming from. Let's talk about journalists who think they understand hardship because they reported on it from the safety of a news van. Producers behind the scenes were in chaos, whispering into earpieces, 'Do we cut to commercial? Do we pull the feed?' But nobody moved, because what they were watching wasn't chaos, it was lightning in a bottle, a moment that couldn't be recreated." George, feeling his grip on the segment slipping, tried to pivot back to control. "Denzel, the point is, don't you think someone with your platform has a responsibility to do more than just entertain?" "The only responsibility I have," Denzel said, voice like steel, "is to speak the truth, to myself, to my audience, and to my craft. And I certainly don't need a lecture on responsibility from someone whose own industry has traded truth for clickbait." Now George's face reddened. "Oh, so now this is about me?" "No," Denzel said, "it's about all of us. It's about what we choose to value: headlines or honesty, noise or nuance." "This is a news program," George snapped, "not a therapy session." Denzel stood up, slowly. The air seemed to compress. Every person in that studio leaned in. "Then maybe you should start treating it like one," he said, calmly. "Because from where I'm standing, this doesn't look like journalism. It looks like theater, and I already have a job doing that." George fired back, voice cracking slightly now. "You think you're the only one who sees through the noise? I've been doing this for 30 years. And in those 30 years, Denzel asked, when did you stop listening? That's when George made his fatal mistake. "You know what? Let's talk about your past. Let's talk about the people you've associated with, the stories people don't know. Let's see how well you handle real scrutiny." The threat hung in the air, like poison. But Denzel didn't blink. "Go ahead," he said. "Dig, but you better be sure your own house is clean. Because when you come at someone like me, people are going to start asking questions about you too, and the internet remembers everything." George's face turned white. "I wasn't threatening you," he said weakly. "I was, yes, you were," Denzel interrupted. "Because you're losing. And when people like you lose, they reach for intimidation." George was visibly shaken now, stammering, trying to backpedal. "This was supposed to be about your film. And you made it personal," Denzel said flatly. "I came here in good faith. You chose this path." As producers finally cut to commercial, George sat silently at the desk, his hands trembling. Denzel unhooked his mic and placed it gently on the table. "I came here to talk about storytelling," he said. "Instead, I got this. I think your viewers deserve better." And with that, Denzel Washington walked off the set. The clip went viral within hours. Millions of views. Hashtags trending worldwide. Pundits, professors, and even other journalists weighed in. But no analysis, no article, no headline could capture what those in the studio had witnessed firsthand. Denzel Washington had delivered a live masterclass not in acting, but in dignity. And George Stephanopoulos had learned a brutal lesson. When you try to corner someone who's spent a lifetime mastering his voice, you'd better be ready for what comes next. What did you think of this confrontation? Did Denzel handle it perfectly, or should he have walked away sooner? Let me know in the comments, and if you want more epic moments like this, subscribe now.